Welcome to Literary Deep Dives and Discussions with me, A.L. Liskey. So today I am joined by a fellow author, Lancelot Ibaraki, and she is joining us from Japan. I'm not going to lie, I've been very, very excited to talk to you. I have so many questions specifically for you. But before we jump into any of those, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to become an author?
Oh, of course. My pen name is Lancelot Ibaraki. I chose this name because when I was about 10 years old, I started fencing. And that was really the start of the new chapter in my life of about knights and rangers and everything. And I decided then, about 12 years old, that I wanted to write a book. And I already had the plot in mind. I just needed to get from the beginning or the end, from the beginning to the end. And it took me 6 years to get down a couple of the drafts, to get down three sections of the book. However, to actually publish the book and everything, it took me now 14 years to get that all down. And then book two is coming out this year, and book one came out 2 years ago, but we're getting a new edition. So this year. So overall, it's been a really, really fun adventure and really exciting.
That's awesome. Wow, fencing. My sister does fencing. She was previously the number one state fencer, but we live in a very rural state. So I'm very intrigued by that. If you don't mind my asking, what got you into fencing?
So I really enjoyed anything, I guess you could say fantasy. I was really big Lord of the Rings fan. Anything that had to deal with that. And I have siblings, and two of my siblings had wanted to also do fencing. And so the three of us went to the school and learned how to fence and everything. But it really was for, fantasy, for knights. We weren't into, the modern day stuff as people are often today. So that is the main reason, I think, for that.
Oh, that's super neat. I love that. I can only imagine. I haven't read your book yet. I'm waiting, like your website says, to buy it when the new edition comes out. But I imagine that when you're kind of describing any like action swordplay, does your fencing play into that?
Yes, of course. With my book, the battles are very descriptive. In other books, you might find that they just say they fought, or they might be simple like they were fighting, but it doesn't go into deep detail of what exactly the movements are. And I think that a lot of authors aren't too sure how those movements take place, and others think that's not necessary. For me, though, especially because I'm not just able to fence, but I'm also able to do karate and kung fu, and I enjoy a lot of different movements. I really want to know what the characters are doing. So in my book, I just simply describe that they strike to the left, they go to the right, they jump over the sword, or they parry. So it is more descriptive, and where the reader then can see what exactly they're doing rather than just imagine that they're fighting. So yes, it does play a really, really good role in there.
Gosh, I love that. I've for my third book, there's bow staff is going to be in that, so I've been trying to pick up bow staff, and that's inspiring to me that you do all these things and you incorporate into your writing. Like it really brings that real life experience in, and to me that makes a book a little more authentic. What brought you to Japan?
So I was raised in America. I'm Polish American, and I didn't find, a place that I really fit in. I was kind of always the oddball out, the black sheep. Everyone called me the rebel. The way of thinking wasn't really familiar to the way that Americans think. I decided that I wanted to travel the world. Actually, one of my siblings was like, Japan, why is a great place to start. For 2 years, I worked up saving money. I studied Japanese and their culture, and I thought it would be a wonderful place. And so I studied in Japan, and what happened was the coronavirus hit right after the year I came, and I wasn't able to travel to other countries. But eventually I came to love Japanese way of life, and I decided that I'm going to try to settle down here and start a life here. So that's pretty much what happened.
Wow, I can't imagine being in a new country and then COVID. So you're not only in a new country, but you're shut down in that country.
Yes. It was very interesting experience. A lot of good things, a lot of bad things, but
Does that experience impact your writing at all?
I think that's a good question for someone who's kind of always been on their own. It wasn't something new, I guess. But then again, thinking of about my character, yes, I think that definitely when I'm rewriting the third book, so I did write those books before I came to Japan and then kind of just drafted them. But when I rewrite the third book now, I think that I definitely can see some of that parts in there where people are kind of standoffish, or like if someone appears sick or ill, like they kind of back away, or like, that idea of, not being in groups or something. But it's not indicated so much, especially because it's a fantasy world. I wanted to show, of course, the dark side, but I also want to show the light side of what people should do. I think everything in my life probably has some sort of indication in my book, maybe without me noticing it, or maybe I'll purposely put it in there.
Do you sometimes like discover as you're writing that, hey, this might have been impacted by something in my life?
So a lot of things for when I was in my younger days, yes, a lot of things in my books are actually experiences I had in my own life, or experience I expected myself to have. Some of the things in my books actually took place after I wrote them. So it's kind of really scary and interesting at the same time, because some things that the main character experience that I wrote in there at a younger age, I have been experienced through my life. And it's like I had been writing my own story. I hope not all the bad things happen, but some of the things did take place later on.
Oh, I am so fascinated by that. I mean, for myself, I really hope the bad things that I write don't happen to me, but because sometimes when you're writing those things, like you already feel those deep emotions, but then to actually experience it, like what a nightmare.
So many of the characters in there also are people in my own life. Obviously their names are different, but that way that all the characters have their own personality and then also their own dreams and ideas. And typically when a character passes away or leaves for some reason, usually the reason for that isn't just because of the plot, but also because that character or that person in my own life either passed away or had to move on. Like I said, I kind of write with experience. It really helps with making the book really real. And it does help with the plot, but again, it allows that like flow to go really well as someone would find in their own life.
I completely agree with that. That is a very personal way to have characters, to really have that humanistic quality within them, because that is a person, Do you get very attached to your characters because of that connection?
Yeah, I think that there are characters that I really, really like, but then I have to let them go or let them move on. There was plenty of characters that I really, really, I guess you could say, feel attached to, especially now that I'm a little bit older and writing the third book, like rewriting the third book, the point where sometimes I'm writing and I'd be like, that's not fair. Like I'm writing the character story, but I feel that what I'm putting there isn't fair for them, or I kind of get lost in my own idea and, oh, this is so cool, I feel so sorry for them. I still put it in there. But I hope that my readers also feel that too. So I definitely tried to put it in there so that my readers also get attached to them.
I'm sure they probably do, with that greater connection, since you're using real humans as examples, that people that most of us, our acquaintances are usually similar to those of others. So I could imagine they'd have that connection. Have you ever had readers tell you that they felt that your characters were personable?
So I did have a couple of readers talk to me about it. Some of them told me like what their favorite character is. And then one of them personally came up to me and said that they are using the main character's name for every username they're using now.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were that attached to the main character. Well, it is one character perspective, so I guess that the main character will be most likable because that's the one that you're always focused on. I did make him likable. He's not morally gray or something, so relatable and likable character, I think.
Do people in your life ever ask you if a certain character is based off of them?
No. I kind of wish they would. Actually, my family, is not that big supportive on my book, so no one has actually read it. So all these comments and everything I heard are from strangers. I like the ones from other authors. They sometimes are bigger critics. And it really helps me though, because I'm still, in the writing process, still in the process. So I'm like, that's actually, a good point, or, oh, I didn't consider that. So I really do like when strangers come up and mention things. But that would be very nice if my family eventually does decide to read it. I really hope they come back and ask me some questions.
I hope they do too. That's wow. I get that to a point. Minus my mother, my family has not really touched my book. Well, caveat there, my brother is. That's interesting, but I do, because I do have my mother reading the book, she's asking me all the time. My characters are similar to yours in that they are based off of real people, but they're a blend of multiple people. So she asks me all the time, is this person based off of so and so? No or yes, and I don't want to tell you.
Uh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to change it up a little bit. I do the same thing. I guess I think I take the good parts of people and I put it in that character. So obviously, it's not going to be exactly the same. And then, actually, the more meaner characters, I guess you could say, the more morally gray or evil characters, are actually not from people I know, based off of, maybe people I know, but people I've seen or like on the news or just things you learn from movies or other books. So now these are specifically created as villains or evil characters, or maybe someone I did know in my life, but I obviously assume they're not that way anymore, so I make sure that I'm not doing exactly like them. So, but all the good characters are based off, or the main characters are based off of, yes, the good people in my life.
You kind of sound like you draw inspiration from all around people, places, circumstances. Would you say that, you mentioned that a lot of life experiences had influenced your book, even though you don't necessarily recognize it in the moment? What are the greatest sources of your inspiration?
I think that the greatest source, or the main idea of the book, is about being good despite what other people do. So I'm an INTJ. I don't know if you know personality types. So personality types, INTJ is the rarest for females. It's where we're basically rebels, like I explained. We will do something logically despite what other people will think. The idea of the book is to do what is right, no matter what people tell you to do, or what people want you to do, or what other people are doing. If someone says that you shouldn't be kind to animals and everyone in the world isn't kind to animals, it doesn't make it necessarily right. And that's the idea. One of the ideas in the book is the main character is like myself, where he is a rebel. So when they tell him, you need to do this, you need to murder this person, you need to kill, you need to steal, he doesn't do it, and he says it's wrong. And then he has people guide him. So I had a kung fu teacher. He was the person that was the most important to me in my life, and he was one of those people as well. We said, you be what you need to be. And so there's a character in there. He's not a mentor, but like that kind of mentor, where this character is fighting between good and evil, and he often approaches him and says, if you do this, then you will be just like them. Or if you do this, this is what's going to happen. Another example is it says, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a murderer for a murderer, a thief for a thief. No matter what someone did to you, it doesn't mean you have to get revenge or do it in the same way. The main plot, or the point of my book, is to love yourself. As someone who grew up in a large family who was often criticized, I had a speech impediment until I was 10, so I couldn't talk until I was 10. I didn't really have any friends. There was a lot of things in my life that just made me hate myself. In that book, at first, everything's dandy and fine for the first few chapters, actually, so I don't kind of go into that. Oh, everyone dies and then he's gone and leaves. It's not like at the typical books, and it's not where it's following that plot line. It's a very much more complicated of what happens. And so eventually he goes from, enjoying his life, loving his life, which is like my younger days where I was with my siblings, I had enjoyment with it. It kind of goes down where turn of events changes, and eventually he starts to hate himself. As it goes on, the book is, because this took 14 years to write, it goes along and teaches how that affects what happens to the world, what happens to the plot, what happens to other characters around him. Eventually, the main idea is that he needs to accept that no matter what happened in his life, it's not his fault. All his failures are just ways to grow, ways to learn. And then it goes on to show that not everyone's going to like you, but you're going to find good friends. And then he has to go and find himself. He has to go to love himself until he's able to turn around and understand what he needs to do to proceed and to help the realm. So this is pretty much the main idea of the book.
That is incredibly powerful. It's just that description of his entire journey, how it's so dynamic like the human life. It's empowering. And I mean, just listening to your synopsis of it, I find that personally relatable. I've had times in my life where I'm also like left out, alone, and don't love myself. And I had selective mutism for about
Oh.
6 years of my life, and nobody knew what it was at the time. So I wasn't diagnosed with anything. I could not talk
Mhm.
at certain places, and nobody knew why. It wasn't a fear response. It wasn't a we didn't think it was a
Oh.
trauma response. It was just could not talk. And so
Mhm.
I was also picked on and pushed out, and things were very awkward. Life does go on like that, is you do have to discover for yourself these powerful lessons. So I personally love that you have taken so much thought and so much time to incorporate that into a book. And I haven't even read it, and I'm already so excited about this. It sounds utterly incredible.
Oh, thank you so much. I really hope to inspire many readers. I think that there are many inspiring books like C.S. Lewis writes or even J.R.R. Tolkien. And I think that was inspiring to me to want to leave a message, like a hidden or small messages, of course, in the book, but a hidden main message in there. And I want readers, I don't tell them that, but I want them to read it and kind of see it in there. So,
I love books like that. I try to do that with my series too. And last week I was talking to another author, and he does sci-fi books, and he's trying to do the same. So it's refreshing to find that across different genres.
oh yes, I think it should be in all genres because definitely it's really important for readers to experience or to learn something from the book, whether it's fantasy, sci-fi, or fiction, non-fiction. Definitely something to leave with, I guess, is the most important thing.
So you've mentioned C.S. Lewis, you've mentioned J.R.R. Tolkien. Those were critical figures for me as well growing up. Love their work so much. I'm still reading them, particularly C.S. Lewis. What was it about their books or any other book that powerfully impacted you to want to write a story?
So the main person or author to help me was J.R.R. Tolkien. I think that it was the idea that characters don't need to be arguing with each other. They don't need to be speaking in our modern tongue. They can say things more fancier, I guess you could say. It showed the details of battles were amazing in J.R.R. Tolkien. Even The Hobbit, where he's descriptive in what that happens, what's going on. And then the idea of that they have a goal. Another thing that I like is that the characters are not the most powerful. They're not like, a lot of characters we see nowadays, they're like the chosen one, or they're very powerful, or they gain so much power that they can never lose, and you're like, okay, that. But in J.R.R. Tolkien's writings, none of the characters are ever powerful enough to defeat the enemy alone. And that's what my book is like. If the main character tried to defeat the enemy alone, he wouldn't. It's the idea that, you have to come together. You need to come together, and you need to think together, and you have to be more plotful. You can't just go out there and like, I'm going to fight you. You have to plot it out. How are we going to get this done? And that was really inspirational for me. Now, the book that people do not talk about is Ranger's Apprentice.
Yes.
Oh, did you read them?
My sister was so big on them. They were always lying around the house, so I got to kind of sneak peek and read them when she would not be around.
Yes, I loved those books. I don't say it on Instagram because I'm embarrassed to, because they're from a younger age, but I want to buy them again. I want to read them again. The idea of Ranger's Apprentice was so inspiring with the guild in my book. The main character, Will, is the main character in the Ranger's Apprentice, and he's just, like I said, he's not the most powerful of all. He needs assistance. He has struggles. He gets injured. He gets hurt. He almost dies. It was just like, what is going to happen? That unpredictable idea that he's not even like some sort of royalty person or something like that, the chosen one. It was nothing like that, and he had missions, and he had to do a lot of plotful things, kind of like I talked about with J.R.R. Tolkien, where he had to think it over. He needed help. He ventured over there. He was captured. There was so much in there that made it so interesting and so exciting. And that's definitely was something for me where I was like, I'm going to do this, where it's not that you can predict the plot. It's that where the characters are going to struggle. They're going to have to think really hard. They're going to have to find people to help them. And it's just that idea that really, really inspired me.
I love that so much. You're absolutely right, because when we have these predictable plots like The Chosen One or All Powerful, to me those become so boring. Like, I can't do this whole superhero Marvel DC thing that a lot of people in society like, because to me they're so incredibly unrelatable and unrelevant by being so powerful that why would I want to watch that? I already know what's going to happen, right?
Oh no, I was gonna say my favorite character, superhero, is actually the Flash because I
Yes.
don't because he's not powerful enough to defeat them alone. He goes through struggles. He goes through even like emotional struggles that affect his powers. So he's like the only superhero that I actually am like, yes, I love him.
Yes. I completely agree. It's having that human aspect. You know, my brother always makes the same argument for Batman is he doesn't actually have superpowers. He's just smart and comes up with, creations. And I'm like, that is true. Yeah, but there's so few and in between. And you're right. It comes down to books that there are too many chosen ones with some special power. And people are like, oh, but I make them vulnerable, but they're still the chosen one. It's a plot that but I like you're doing is having a person be ordinary and having to require other people, because really none of us can ever resolve anything on our own. And we live in a world with so many other individuals that sooner or later you're bound to either clash against them or get stuck in some obstacle requiring them. Why not include that?
Yes, exactly. Another great thing, if you don't mind me mentioning, is the dialogue.
Yes.
I like dialogue nowadays books. Well, for the last 15 years, have been very argumentative. I don't know if you noticed that. They feel like they have to argue. I know this is something with agents, and so I don't blame all authors, but they make the dialogue sometimes too short. Nowadays it's like make the dialogue as short as possible, and you miss that deep meaning, that deep conversation. I mean, when we talk in real life, we don't say a few sentences and then walk away. Or just agree with each other suddenly. Like, you have to make a point. You have to, but you don't have to be argumentative with it. And that, I think that is the problem. It's anytime the dialogue appears, people think, oh, they have to be arguing about something. And that's the only time they talk to each other, which is not necessarily how life works. So in my book, I think I saw this in J.R. Tolkien. Even Rachel the Apprentice wasn't so bad at it, or even Harry Potter, where they just talk to each other, or they want to make a point, but they're not pointing fingers or arguing. They're just like, what about? Or I think this, but you can think this. Like, where it comes down to the idea, it's like, all right, I believe in this and you believe in that, and that's fine. Of course, there are some parts where they argue with each other, but it's not that constant argument. It's not always, a lot of times, like I said, they just have a conversation. What do you think? Or should we do this? Or I have an idea. Or are you right? Like, because the characters are, and the struggles, they all have some sort of hardship. So then other characters come up and say, I want to talk to you. Are you right? Everything. Some other characters are like, I had a dream, or I have a vision. I just want to go and do this. And they say explaining themselves or explaining the situation, or even stories. Another thing is I added stories where characters are like, hey, I know this story. I heard this tale one time, and everything. So, it's not a lot of arguments. And it's, like I said, a lot of deep conversation. Even if there's a character that gets angry, it's like arguing or shouting, I always have one character. If let's say there's 2 or 3 characters, and there's always one character that is mellow, who settles them down and says, okay, let's calm down. And so I always make sure I put it in there, because I don't think that we should be arguing in life. And I think that we should, have conversations, but we don't need to shout or call names or do something like that. To a book will help readers be like, oh wow, that's a better way to do it.
Absolutely. You've made so many powerful points there that are really prevalent to the things that are necessary nowadays. There's a struggle going on in the world that people no longer know how to have a conversation, and they're so avoidant of it. We'd rather be glued to our phones instead of talking to each other, unless, heaven forbid, we have religious, political, or social differences. And then it's just all argument from there and very little listening and communication. Part of my collegiate studies have been in human development, talking about parent-child and parent-child peer relationships. And we always look at the communication aspects of that. And really, there's a huge gap that keeps widening every single year over how well people are able to have relationships based off of communication styles, because they're deteriorating. And where do we learn how to discuss things? Well, we learn it from media. We learn it from watching shows, movies, and books. And when that dialogue is missing, that's what's coming out of us. And it's the same thing with healthy relationships. Like, they don't teach that in school. So you're learning it from the books. And if we as authors aren't portraying that properly or realistically or even dignifiedly, the same things that we write are going to come out of their mouths. So I feel very much the same as you. And something that I remember that you mentioned on Instagram that really struck me, and you kind of reiterated it with the dialogue, is having proper dialogue and using proper terms, using classical sentences and phrasing and more vocabulary than is currently used in these days. And that is something I strive to do in my book. So when you said that, I was like, yes, because the vocabulary nowadays is absolutely atrocious. It's absurd that we cannot use any terms other than, dropping F-bombs and using the same phraseology that we get off of social media. Whereas what you're offering with proper long actual dialogues with depth and humanity in them and a better vocabulary is that elevated dignity in being human.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I totally understand. I'm an English teacher, so I get to experience those struggles each day. I say English teacher, but English for second language. So I actually have to teach grammar the most. So yes, teaching that grammar is actually really fun. But I find that my books help me to understand it better as I'm writing. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that you could use it that way. And then the deep meaning. And I heard someone actually comment to me that one time. Everyone has their own opinion, so I totally respect this. But they were like, no one talks like that anymore. I do. So when there's a deep conversation I will actually talk this way, actually. So like to, family members or even like friends. Or there's a student that wanted to, stop my class, get out of my class. We didn't know really what the problem was, so I had a conversation with her. And it was just because she was a little bit confused and she just wasn't confident in herself. And so she didn't feel confident enough to learn English. And her mother was a little bit upset with me, but in the end, I said, everyone in life experiences struggles and misunderstandings. And as you go older, the more and more you will learn that you will not understand, and you will need to have guidance for other people. So whenever time comes, that time, go up and ask them what you don't know. And I'm sure that they will tell you, and you will be able to be successful in your life. Her mother came up to me personally after that. I was like, thank you so much, because that's what we need to do nowadays. We don't need to be like, all right, see you, bye. Or, be angry, be like, how dare you not want to be in my class? It's the understanding of what the other side is, and then helping them by giving guidance. And, she didn't have to come back to my class. I didn't do it to have her come back. I did it because I knew that she's going to go in high school, she's going to go into the workforce, and there are a lot of things that she's not going to know. And if she's running from what she doesn't know, she's never going to be able to go forward. So I let her know that she needs to speak to someone and let them know and be confident that, I don't know, it's okay.
That's powerful advice. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. You're absolutely right. We need to see people as people and not necessarily be judging them by their choices, not necessarily be judging them by how they make us feel or how we perceive they're looking at us or treating us. It's, do I care about this person to have a conversation with them? And like yourself, I tend to talk much more formally when I feel like I'm having a proper intellectual conversation, and that is my preferred style. I write formally in most of the things that I do, but I will dial down and dumb down how I speak almost to a kind of Western slang dialect, depending on the crowd that I'm in, because that's all they can relate to. But for me, there's something about higher vocabulary and proper dialogue and proper conversations that has more power. If I can express myself articulately and you can express yourself articulately, we're not only going to have a more meaningful conversation, but we're going to have a more productive conversation, one that makes us both feel empowered and come away with something meaningful. And that's what happens when we have those higher ways of speaking and we can look at people as people and discuss things calmly in such a way. And so for me, when I do get those comments as well, that this book is written too formally, and I mean, I dialed the lattice scheme down way down to not be as formal as I had originally put it. My second book, The Fallacy Web, is much more formal. If that is too formal for you and you think that that's not how people speak, I say that's how people ought to speak. They should speak that way, because if they did, they would have more power.
Yeah, conversations. I think people might be interested or want to speak to one another more if we had meanings within our words. And that's why maybe people turn to social media nowadays, is because they're searching for some sort of meaning, but they forget that they are the ones that can give it. And to each other. I love the idea of conversation. So, and I think that your book sounds very wonderful. I really need to look into it. I did see some things on Instagram. I'm sorry, I've been really busy with my book, and I'm like, oh, I'll get to
Oh, no
it.
worries.
I haven't even got to reading that much at all recently. So I really want to look into it. It looks really, really interesting. I want to read it.
Well, it'll be around when you have time. And the thing that I believe about authors, I mean, as I found as being an author, is that we don't always have so much time for reading because we're so busy writing what everyone else is reading. We do read to put things into our books, the research that we need to make these things powerful and meaningful. But as an author, you really have very little downtime for reading. So I'm never offended when other authors don't read my book, because my big thing is I want to support other authors. And if I have the time to read their books, I will read their books, but they can understand, just as I can understand, that we are swamped. We're utterly swamped. And that's totally fine, because what's important is that we as authors are supporting each other in other ways, like having conversations, like sharing each other's posts, liking each other's posts. And that to me is more than enough support that I need. And I'm trying to do the same for others, like having this podcast. So, if you get to it, cool. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I do it. Sorry, I might be wrong, but is it like that mystery kind of story?
It is a speculative mystery thriller.
Oh, that sounds, yes. I used to read, I forget what they were called, many, many years ago, mysteries. I think I'd be excited to get back into there, especially with the unpredictable ideas and plots and everything, something I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's got some elements of fantasy in there as well, so you might enjoy that.
Oh.
Something that I'm really curious about, and I think a lot of other authors are curious about as well, is that you are traditionally published. And so as an indie author, I am so curious, how did you go about that? Yeah, the whole process.
Oh, okay. So I went through it a little bit different than a lot of other authors. When I first finished all 3 books within 6 years, I was still a teenager. So I was like, oh, I'm going to get this published. I sent it out to like 20 different people. But again, I didn't have any support from family. So it was just, a teenager writing a letter and like say I want to publish my book. So I got rejected, all of them. For 2 years, I kept my book, I drafted it, and I just kind of like waited, I guess you could say. I kind of went on with life. I know I moved to Japan and everything. And then after coming to Japan, I was like, I'm going to try one more time. And I changed my letter, and I decided to send it out to only 2 people within a couple months. So it doesn't tell, people expect, them to reply within a couple weeks. It usually takes about 2, 3, even 4 months to get back to you. So it's a long waiting process. The 2 of them came back and said, I want your book. And the one that I worked with was with the publisher. It was a hybrid publisher. So I got to talk to them. I gave them my book. They're like, yes, we want it. So hybrid publishers are kind of in between indie and traditionally publishing. It's where you pay half for the book, so for the publishing process, but you get 25% royalty, which other traditional publishers will be offering only 5% for fantasy. I was looking for those higher royalties because I feel like my book has potential. I know it's going to take time to get it known, but I feel like it does. It does have potential to inspire readers to get out there. So I wanted to go with the higher royalties, and so that's why I went with a hybrid publisher, which is traditionally publishing. It's just you don't get paid. You pay half for them at first, and then you get paid later on. You just kind of promote your book and then market it.
Awesome. That's what I want. I want somebody to just market my book for me, because I don't like self-marketing at all. It's I don't like talking about myself either. So I'm like, you just slap the book in front of someone. I'll just do my thing supporting other people, and everybody's happy.
Traditional publishing has its good points, but has its bad points too. Recently, they tried to use AI. So my first book came out before AI, so that was a good thing. So there was nothing AI that they tried to use in it, and they got that out. There was a little bit of complications with that, again, because you're working with a traditional publisher. But again, we're getting a new edition, so those are all going to be fixed. The only thing is, my second book has been working on for a year and a half, and that's when the AI came out, and they tried to use AI for the front cover. They used there was 2 editors. One of the editors was using AI to edit the book, and the other editor was fine. So I worked with that editor more when I could. There's a lot of things to be careful now with traditional publishing, because they're not going to want, especially like with publishers in America and in Europe, because they don't have these AI laws. So like publishers in New Zealand will have these strict AI laws, but in other countries like America or Europe, wherever you're publishing, will not have them, or they might have them further on, but right now they don't. So you're going to have them AI generate your book with like editing and the covers, or even like art if you ask, because for me as a hybrid, I can ask them to put art in there. I put in my own art, but I could have had them have an artist do it. The only thing is, again, they're going to start using AI for that. It's something to be really aware of and careful with.
Yeah, I really admire how you do your own art. I do all my own art as well. I mean, as a fellow artist, I imagine that you have your own sentiments on that. So what is your take on AI?
I would say when the AI first came out, I was like, oh, it's good with restrictions. But when we kind of jumped into 2026, I was like, oh, I hate it. I just wish it would go away. I wish it didn't exist. There's a really hard issue with AI because for AI, when it comes to books, let's talk about editing first. It's no longer your idea. It's someone else's idea that AI took from the internet, mixed it all up, and put it in your book. And like when I saw it in my book as well, it was really strange because I would have, my style of writing is very unique. So you would see this unique style of writing, and then you would just see this like article type paragraph in there. I'm like, oh, it was like someone giving information, like an article, like a report. I'm like, this is a fantasy story. This is not what I was describing. It wasn't even what I was even trying to say. So it really shows a difference if you're using it as an assistant. Another thing is I found a book that was AI generated. I read it to see how it was. This was just a test. I'm not supportive of it. It was absolutely terrible. There was missing information. There was ton of plot holes. It didn't make sense like half the time. Again, it's plagiarizing. Two, it just doesn't fit in books. Another thing is about the cover of books. In some countries, you could use it, but the thing is other people can use it. So if you use an AI generated cover in the US, people are allowed to use that cover. So let's say your book becomes popular. People can take your cover and use it for their cover. And they can take your cover and use it. It's in its public domain because it's not your original idea. And that's what the American government chose. So now you have a problem where you no longer have an original idea. Another thing is what I saw with my publisher who tried to use AI generated things. It was just weird because it wasn't what I was describing. Like there was a horse on there, a unicorn, and I asked them for a unicorn. And so they added like the unicorn tail and the horn, but now it was like totally different colors and didn't match it. And then a character on there, also his bowstring was backwards. Then you're gonna have these strange things in there. But then again, let's talk about the readers most importantly, or people most importantly. If I made you a cake, or if I bought a cake and I said I made this cake for you, and then you figure out I bought it instead, like what is that feeling? Oh, you actually didn't do that. Or I say I wrote a letter and I gave you a letter, and later on you find out that letter wasn't written by me. I had is that what it's called? I don't use it.
ChatGPT.
Yes. I had AI write it. Then would you think if it was a beautiful letter that said, oh, you're an amazing person, would you think, oh, you really think that? Or would you would look at it and be like, that's something a robot wrote, not you. And then so when it comes to anything art, it's not just books, it just becomes anything. When you figure out that this person or this creator did not put their time or their love or their effort into that piece, it downgrades its worth. And it tells that person, you're not important enough for me to spend time on this. If I drew a portrait or something and I gave it to you, you're like, and it took me 10 hours, you'd be like, wow, that's amazing. But if I had AI generate it and gave it to you, oh, thanks. It shows that worth. You were worth 10 hours of my time. And then if you just spend 1 second to generate it, that means that person was only 1 second worth your time.
I love that. That was very well said. I am very much of the same sentiment. When it comes to editing, my first editor used AI, and I did not find out until after the release day, and I had my proof copy, read through it. I was horrified, absolutely horrified. So my book has been re-edited several times, and you can see on Goodreads there's like 9 editions because trying to find an editor who could go through and would not use AI and try to fix that mess was insane. Eventually I redid it myself, and then I finally had it professionally re-edited. It takes away so much. And for myself, I used to work for a nonprofit called Junior Achievement, and I did a lot of work studying AI with them because we wanted to come up with corporate rules as to how to properly use it and what restrictions there should be. When it came to editing, I got to present on how to properly and improperly use editing with AI. And my conclusion with it is, while yes, there is a proper way that you can edit with AI, it's exhausting and it takes so much longer because artificial intelligence, like you're saying, it puts so much other work in there that you have to continually keep correcting it as to what you're looking for, the style you're looking for. You need it to remember certain things. And even though it claims it remembers, it does not. It will always forget. So it's a constant argument. And who wants to be arguing over proper grammar, how this character is supposed to sound, etc.? I've never used it to edit like a fiction piece, but just using it for work business alone caused so much of a headache that it just isn't worth it. But also, on the flip side of things, we as humans seem to be dumbing ourselves down as to what we have a capability to do. There's a reason we teach technical writing in college, because we can do that. We don't need a chat robot to summarize a meeting and send those notes, right? Mm-hmm. And it is the same for authors and writing, is you have the power and the knowledge available at your fingertips and in other books to be able to compose a fully solid, well-written book. And when you do that, it feels incredible. It is empowering. It's kind of like communication dialogue. It gives you that higher power, and it opens a lot of freedoms to you as well. Whereas using a chat bot, an AI thing for art, for anything at all, you rob yourself of that opportunity to see what you're capable of and that higher growth.
Yes, definitely it does.
I'm very curious, what are your greatest joys about being an author?
My greatest joys is to bring the reader into a different world. So a lot of people, what they don't realize when they're writing is that the reader isn't just there. They are a character. They are part of the book. So again, whenever you add something, I'm going to talk about spice, when you add something spicy, or whenever you add something, how you might say argumentative, like I mentioned before, don't expect your reader to read and be like, oh, these two people are arguing. Expect them to feel a part of it. And imagine what your reader might think when a character is yelling at another character. When you have two friends and they're arguing, are you just like standing like, this was wonderful, thank you? Or you're like, oh, this is really awkward or uncomfortable. That's what your reader is going to feel and experience. With spice, I'm not against it, but it depends on what age group you're writing for. So definitely, like, if you're like, oh, it's just a book, they're not showing any images. Yes, the reader is there, they can see it. For me as a reader personally, it's really awkward if I had to be in a room with someone doing that. So I really would rather not have it in books I read, because that's how I feel when I read, is definitely I'm there. And so I'm going to mention that when writers write, they need to consider that the reader is there and what they want to be showing them is what is what. And this is also good for description, because like if you have the reader like go with you into a castle and you don't describe what the castle looks like, they might be a little bit lost. So being a little bit more descriptive is good there as well.
That is very true. As authors, we have a responsibility to be considerate of our readers, kind of like we expect celebrities to be considerate of their audience. And a lot of times they're not, but we have the power to be responsible. In my opinion, I believe anything you put out says a lot about you as a person. And if we want to be people of integrity, we need to be considerate about what we're putting out. So I love that yes, think about the reader, consider what they're seeing. I have a personal weakness that sometimes I describe things very, very well. Like the dreams I write are very, very vivid. And then I'll get to some portions that are a little more mundane. And my beta readers will say, hey, I have no clue what's happening here. Can you give a little motion? And so that is my weakness as a writer. Sometimes micro movements miss. And so I always have to go back and correct that. What are some of your weaknesses as an author?
Too worried about my books because I spend a lot of time drafting them. So I edit as I write, which I do this purposely because the plot is very strategic and I want it to flow better. So I always go back a chapter and read it before I start any writing session or even a page. I'll go back a page and read it, go back, or even jump. I typically, because I'm constantly editing, know where sections of the book are. So I go back and check them to make sure the information's right. That takes a lot of time. And like I said, I'm on year 14 to get book 2 out. So maybe it's the idea that I'm not able to produce books quickly. So my readers will have to wait for them to be done. They will have to wait for the books to get out, or even like my next series, they're going to have to wait a couple of years before I start that one. So I guess a lot of waiting for the reader, which could be a little bit a downfall because now readers might forget, or they're like, I don't like this author because it takes so much time. So something like that.
Pressure and patience. Those are the two P's that are constantly a downfall, I feel like, in today's society. A lot of, so many youth in the rising generation and even the older generation now are so quick entertainment based that they don't have a lot of patience to wait. They want everything instantaneously. And, with social media and AI now, we get that quick fix and it doesn't mean as much. Whereas for us authors, it causes pressure. You need to get this done. You need to get this done now. And so sometimes that tosses out getting it done well. I've met quite a few indie authors that I did book swaps with, and their work was decent. They've told me, and I could tell by the writing, that if they had taken more time, it would have been even better. And so while there is that pressure, it's like the reality is I want to give you the best version I can, but at the same time, like, I don't want to lose you. So how do we strike this balance?
For me, I think worth over wealth. So despite that, I know some readers will be upset. I will spend my time with my books. Again, maybe that's my downfall, but that is definitely something I don't plan on stopping doing, because my books, I want to be almost perfect. I know not all books are perfect, but almost perfect for my readers, or so perfect that they don't realize if there's a grammar mistake or something like that. So
I love that. It reminds me of a saying. I don't remember where I heard it, but it was be strong in your weakness. So embrace your limitations. You stand up for yourself in them, and suddenly they are a superpower. Let's see. Do you have any outstanding advice that you would give folks that are striving to be authors?
I guess I would say that definitely don't follow what people tell you to do. If you want something to be unique, you want something to be amazing, you want your story to shine, it's about following what you love and what you enjoy writing. So if you are not writing for you, you're not going to make an amazing story. If you're not writing something that you want to read, you're not going to love your story and understand it. You're not going to perfect it either. And so for me, I don't do any of the famous tropes, but I love my books the most. They're my favorite, and I always fall in love with them. I always want to read them. I'm always thinking about them. And this is because I wrote exactly what I wanted to read. And so I think that all authors should love their books the most, rather than try to get biggest audience or the best audience or try to please someone.
What upcoming works can readers expect from you? Like, tell us a little bit more about what's about to come out.
Oh, yes, of course. So my second book just finished the amendments, so that is completely done now. The cover is done. I worked with an artist. We got that done. Right now, we're just waiting for the release date, which is going to be soon. Usually with traditionally publishing, they do it about 2 or 3 months in advance. So it'll probably be about May, around when it will be coming out, is my expectation. As for book 1, I'm getting the new edition done, and it should be coming out the same time. So you'll be able to get those 2 books at the same time. I'm on a rewrite with book 3, but that's going to take some time to complete and then traditionally publish. So it'll be another year or 2, but that's something to look forward to.
Excellent. Well, I'm super excited about this. May can't come soon enough. And for me, that's perfect timing because I'll be moving states, so I'll be settled in then with a brand new bookshelf.
Oh, that'd be nice. Wonderful.
Yeah, I just got to get more books for it, and yours will be 2 of them. So thank you so much for your time. This has been a wonderful discussion. And to let watchers know, they can pick up your books off your website. I saw it was on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. Is it anywhere else?
It's on Waterstones. It's practically anywhere in the world except for what I know is South Korea for some reason doesn't sell it. For there's I think it's called Peppy Plus, which is New Zealand, Australia, the Australia Amazon. It's in India and two different websites. It's because the publisher is marketing it. It's on probably 30 or 40 different websites around the world. Again, there's a couple countries you can't get in, like South Korea, but I'm not sure of any other ones right now that you currently couldn't purchase it.
Okay, so very few people are without excuse. So for anybody watching, mark your calendars for May. Make sure to pick up these excellent books. Again, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully I can have you on the show again sometimes.
Yes, thank you so much. It was wonderful. And it was very exciting to meet you.
You as well. All right. I'll just say goodbye to my viewers, and please subscribe for greater discussions with other indie authors and traditionally published authors.